In this episode, we've got another client case study. Chrissy tells us how she grew her property portfolio from 0 to 3 houses in a really turbulent market and the lessons that kept her on track.
We are back in your life, and today we've got another case study. We've got Chrissy on the podcast who has bought 3 properties in absolutely no time. Chrissy, welcome to the pod.
Hey guys.
Not nervous at all, eh?
Yeah.
No.
So, Chrissy, I'm keen to talk a little bit about your journey. It's very cool. Mike and I just talk about theory a lot, but to hear about your story and what you've learned along the way is very cool. So, Michael, where do we want to start?
I reckon let's start with what got you into property in the first place, right? Because we can talk about the individual properties and how they've worked out, but I think a great place for people to, or a great thing for people to hear would be, why was it property and not crypto or not shares or not drop shipping?
Oh, yeah. Good questions. So essentially, I did try drop shipping. That went well for a little bit. I learned the value of NPD, new product development, and how much incrementality that drives. But
wasn't expecting that to start, Chris, to be honest.
This is a property podcast.
What were you drop shipping?
I was doing makeup brushes. Love makeup. But then I decided, you know what? I'm going to get into it. So I read a book. I think it must be Robert Kiyosaki. And I heard someone say a quote like, if you like something, don't be the consumer, be the provider, essentially. So I was like, oh, I like makeup. So here I am at 18, 19 doing drop shipping. So I guess an entrepreneurial spirit from the beginning.
Yeah.
However, that didn't quite go to plan. And I realized that you need money to make money. And I didn't have any money.
Yeah, I do always find that when it's like, it's super easy. All you need is like, how do you turn $1 million into like $2 million? I'm like, yeah, but no one has the million to start with.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So you did drop shipping for a little bit. Then how did we get to property?
So I read a book by Robert Kiyosaki, as most people do. I was working the 9 to 5, but it was in advertising, and I worked from like 6 a.m. I would leave my house and I'd get home at 7. And essentially, I felt like that just was not the life I wanted to lead. And so this book somehow fell into my lap, manifested this book. And I figured that this is what I'm going to do. At the time, we were living in the garage, or like a granny flat as such, of our parents' property. And I figured this would be the best time to cut some costs and really just leverage my $39,000 salary to start saving for our first house to get on the ladder.
$39,000 salary.
Working from 6 a.m. to 7.
I can see why you thought that wasn't going to be a long-term life that you wanted to live. With that first house, was that you're like, okay, I'm going to buy an owner-occupied property, or did you want to go straight into investment? Talk to me about that.
Look, I think the easiest part was to just get into it as an owner-occupier.
Yeah.
I wasn't so versed into rent vesting and all of that at the time. So first things first, let's get ourselves a house. And that was a property in Hobsonville that we still own. Won't be for much longer, I don't think, but we still own that property. It's done really well for us. We bought it on like a ballot system.
Like a KiwiBuild one.
Yes, but what I did was I didn't go for Hobsonville. So I say Hobsonville, but it's actually in Scotts Point. Exactly. So people don't know where Scotts Point is, but now my strategy was, if I can tack on to what Hobsonville has as such, then Scotts Point will be the value of that added extra, you know. And
where is Scotts Point?
Next to Hobsonville.
Come on, Michael. Surely, Michael, you can work that bit out.
It's like the facing into the city, so it's actually even better.
Oh, yeah.
And what was the gap in time between when you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and bought your first home?
It's that was a few years. So we saved really hard for about 3 years. Everything we earned essentially. Yep. I remember the groceries were $20 a week at the time because we were living with fam. But $20 was for me a lot. So I would just keep it as much as I could to the minimum.
You spend $20 a week on groceries.
Yeah.
I did a grocery shop yesterday, and I was too lazy to go past New World to pack and say it. Guess how much it was 1 week for groceries?
$400.
$406.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know Michael well.
Yeah.
You can't get much now for $20, but yeah,
I don't even
20
think
bucks was
I don't
like
even think
a
they
few
let you
bits
in the
and
door
bobs.
with $20 these days.
So when you look back on those few years where you were like grinding and saving, because I mean, it kind of at the start sounded like I had no salary. I read a book, then I bought a house. But there was this period in the middle where you had to save and sacrifice for a long period of time. When you look back on that now, how do you reflect on that period?
Look, I think it was the best decision I've ever made. When you're young, I think there's a lot that you can cut back without having that lifestyle creep and seeing your peers do wonderful things. Everyone was in the same boat of being broke.
Yeah.
And I was just broker than broke.
It is funny when you're all in the same broke boat together. It's like going to uni. Everyone's broke, right? And you're like, oh, yeah, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter. Everyone's cutting back, but I'm just cutting back more so than everyone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I became quite thrifty in what I was trying to do, like drop shipping. And yeah, it was a hard gig, I have to say. We felt pretty under the pump. It was a very hard, grueling 3 years, especially with crypto going up. So that's something that I didn't get into. I tried, but I learned the FOMO just loses you money.
Yeah.
Everyone else was making money on crypto. We were just saving our money the old-fashioned way for 3 years, and that was hard work, but best decision ever.
Okay. And so what year did you buy the house and how much did you buy the house for?
So this was in 2018 we moved into the property. We had purchased the property in 2017, but because it was a new build, took a while for it to get built. So yeah.
Cool.
It was 636 was the first purchase price.
And when it was the ballot system, do you get like a discount on that? Is that why there's the ballot system?
You don't get a discount as the actual development. At that time, developments needed a certain amount of affordable housing, or a lot of them did. So they would have ones that were effectively kept artificially low, and then they would ballot those out. Yeah. But there was like restrictions around it. Couldn't be an investment property. Can't sell it for 5 years. Like a whole lot of stuff around that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And how much is it worth now?
Well, at its peak, it was 1 mil. Now
Nice.
it's 900.
Okay. Oh, it's not too bad of a drop compared to.
That's a great buy.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Adjacent to Hobsonville. So
Yeah.
whilst Scotts Point was a dead land, at the time there's nothing there. Now there's schools. There's a whole lot of stuff that I think is also a big learning opportunity for myself.
Yeah.
Where you actually capitalize on the value that is being added around the property in a new build. And this house specifically we chose because it had 2 bedrooms upstairs and a mezzanine, but it had 2 en-suites for whatever reason and a powder room downstairs. So we actually cash flow hacked our very first new build. And we added a 3rd bedroom and we changed the configuration to have it as a family bathroom as opposed to 2 en-suites.
You don't do that every day, do you?
No, you don't.
No, well, we saw the value in it, and so we really wanted to get it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before that you might be selling that property. Talk me through that.
So the reason why we think we need to start selling this underperforming asset is because currently, as I said, it's about 900,000, and so the return on that would be about 3% of what we're getting. And now knowing what I know, it means that it's an underperforming property. We can get much better, but it did its job. It was capital gains at the time where we really needed the equity to start actually investing. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And so you now live in Melbourne. Did you buy your second property before or after you moved to Australia?
Well, actually, I bought my second property while living here. However, that property we since sold.
So you bought a second property and then sold it. Tell us what happened with that story.
Yeah, so we bought a property in Milldale, much the same. Millwater, big, everybody knows Millwater. Not many people knew about Milldale. We bought it during the pandemic, so nobody was buying, but interest rates were low. And I thought it would be the perfect time to buy. Contrarian investing, you know, what everybody talks about. Be greedy when others are fearful and the other way around. And so, we purchased this property in Milldale for just over $1 million. And then we sold it a year later. And when we saw how the economy was starting to track. So in 2021, we actually sold that house at the peak in November. And everybody remembers that because it was the peak. And then literally a month later, it dropped.
Gone.
But people were like, oh, you're lucky. You got lucky with that timing. It was a calculated guess.
Yeah.
You can get lucky, but it was calculated. We were looking at the history in 1970s. Very similar stuff happened where the property market actually dropped in New Zealand. And so we decided to sell that house. And we made about $600,000 on that.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
In 1 year. Yeah.
And you use the equity from the first property to leverage into the second property?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then actually I learned from that property, from this whole purchase, I learned that you can very quickly eat up your usable income by buying stuff like what we did. So we thought we'd use this townhouse in Scotts Point as a rental. We then learned that that rental income wasn't going to cover what we needed it to cover for us to continue. So very quickly we thought this isn't going to work out for us in the long term.
Yeah.
It could if the capital values keep going up, but we thought that it wouldn't just based off what we knew. So we decided to, again, sell our big, beautiful home.
Yeah.
And we took another punt on the market and then we decided to downgrade, which was very hard as well mentally, to go back to a little townhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we basically paid off one debt and we were mortgage free for a few years.
Okay, Chrissy, so you made $600,000 like that. You paid off your mortgage. You had some cash. What did you do apart from pay off your mortgage?
Bought a Range Rover.
Yeah, there it is.
There we go. At I think I was 26, 27, I owned a Range Rover.
Yeah, nice. Did you like it?
I loved it.
Yeah.
But
Have you still got it?
No. And I managed to make a loss on it. But that's okay, you just win some, you lose some.
I feel like you kind of have to expect you're always going to make a loss on the cars.
That's right.
No one really goes into it thinking they're going to sell it for more. I mean, you tell yourself that. But,
Yeah. In hindsight, do you regret buying the Range Rover at all? Or are you really happy that you had it for the period that you had it?
Look, I think I'm quite happy that I owned it. I ticked that bucket. I've decided that Range Rover's not my thing.
So you had a Range Rover for a period of time. You had some cash. You were debt free. What happened next?
Then decided to move to Aussie. However, in between all of that, I guess thinking about the next steps and what that's going to look like in a downturn market, the properties basically they just continue going down in price and the interest rates went up. So really learned a lot about how these correlate. I figured now in hindsight, you can make money on the up and on the down, but you just have to be quite strategic, I think, how you make money on the down, which we didn't have that. And so that's where I was doing some research into what that could look like in the future and how we can add value. I'm really big on adding value to things. So I shop on Trade Me for most stuff. I buy everything as little as I can that looks expensive or is worth a lot more than what it is on Trade Me. So much the same mindset applied to property. What can I do to add value? And so that's where I started looking into what Ilse does is her property coaching. And that's how
Before we jump into that, why did you move to Australia?
Why did I move to Aussie? Greener pastures, apparently.
Yeah.
Depressing.
Melbourne.
Nobody else allowed to leave.
Melbourne is not very green, though. It's very brown. Yeah. So I don't know. Certainly not greener pastures there.
I feel like there's a lot of people who do kind of look to Australia for like a fresh start, more salary, with different opportunities. Just quickly, have you found that it's been a good move or?
It's had its challenges without getting too much into the personal stuff. But it's had its challenges. It's not as easy as just hopping over the ditch as people make it out to be. Oh, I just moved to Aussie. Everybody does it, but it's a new city. It's a whole new country. You have to navigate everything. But worth it. Income went up a little bit. However, super is not included in your income, so it gets added on top. There's a lot of added benefits to tax as well over there. Not so much as an investor, as a property investor, but from a personal point of view, there's some benefits to tax there as well. So,
And why did you decide to buy more property in New Zealand versus invest into property in Australia?
Well, firstly, I knew the market in New Zealand, a lot more familiar. And if anything, I've learned from my FOMO with crypto is that, you need to really just invest in what you know and make your money work for you in the ways that you know. But also, Australia has stamp duty.
Yeah.
Australia has stamp duty tax, and there's capital gains tax and all of that, which actually still privy to by living over there. That's if you sell, though. But yes, there's a lot of stuff that's added to it and makes it more expensive. In New Zealand, the yields are better. And because I know what I'm doing here, more so better yields in terms of keeping a property, like returns on a rental.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So you're in Australia. You've kind of looked at the Australian property market, I know New Zealand better. There's some opportunities over here. You just mentioned Ilse Wolf from Wolf Property, and we'll pop a link to her website in our bio. But tell me a little bit about how that all kicked off with Ilse.
So essentially, I've been following her and following Opus Partners, the podcast, for a while. And this was all the way back in thinking back to 2020. I was listening to what they did, and then she came on board there. And I love having another fellow female and talking about like what she's done and all the properties journey she's been on. So very inspiring. And so, yeah, it's been something that I've been wanting to do. And for me, I feel like learning without having the downfalls as such, the learning opportunities on the down. She's done a lot of the stuff. She's worked through the grind and she's gone through the ringer herself. Yep. So you actually get to learn from someone who's now up here when I'm down here. So I figured if I can even just get halfway, or not even halfway, if I can just skip some of the stuff and then just leverage what she knows to then avoid some of the costly mistakes, I think it's money well spent.
Oh, I agree. And I think that is like one of the really good things with a coach or someone who's done it all before. Like they've been through the ups, they've been through the downs, they know what to avoid. And, so long as they have done it and they're a good coach, like absolutely so valuable to have on the team.
Yeah, I think it's it just helps you mitigate some of the losses.
Yeah.
And you have to make 100%. You have to make some crazy amount of money to actually make up your losses.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, for sure. So tell us about the first property you bought with Ilse.
So the first one was in Whangarei. So we bought a 3-bedroom property and added a bedroom. It's about sitting on 770 square meters of land. So there's room to...
Big block of land.
Yeah, for 375 grand. So decent.
I'll take 2.
Yeah.
In Otangarei.
Lovely.
Yeah, OT.
Yeah.
However, we just got lucky. It didn't know much about Whangarei, and the property is like 2 minutes drive from Kensington.
Nice.
Literally just drive down the same road and you're in a nice area.
Yeah.
That just happened by fluke.
Mm-hmm.
The house itself neighbors a retirement village. I figured, you know what? These guys are going to be nice and quiet.
Great neighbours.
Neighbours.
Yeah. They're not going to be throwing a rave till 4 a.m. in the morning, so potentially good neighbours.
You went through the Accelerate program with Ilse.
Yeah.
You bought the property. Once you bought the property, what was the plan with Ilse?
So we did a 4-bedroom out of 3.
Nice.
So we managed to get quite a bit more rent from that. However, also there's value to be added there from a subdivision point of view. And still waiting on the whole cabin situation, what that looks like yet.
Yep.
Because I know that there's some talks around it potentially being a much bigger cabin that you don't actually need to get resource consent for. So at the moment, just a 4-bedroom property, returning about $670 a week. And yeah, it's doing pretty well.
Yeah. And with that one, how did you find the process of, going through that, getting the finance, learning what to do, and then executing on it?
The finance was actually quite interesting. So you guys gave us a mortgage, and AJ, who's helped me through the whole process, he gave us quite a big reno budget. And at the time,
Sounds like AJ. Yeah.
At the time, I was like, I don't think we need it. It's not part of what we've discussed. It's not part of our due diligence.
Yeah.
However, what went wrong was that the reno went from something like 50, 60 grand to 100 grand. Luckily, AJ gave me that money, because then we would have been in a really crappy position.
Yeah. And I think, we talked before about also having a lot of experience and learning from, some of what she's been through. AJ is a property developer, a property renovator, and obviously a mortgage broker as well. So, when he says stuff like that, usually like a lot of the time, because he does the finance for us, always like, no, just take the money.
Yeah.
50 grand turning into 100 grand. Why?
Okay, so the full scope of the property was essentially to do up the kitchen, do up the bathroom, get new carpets in, put a new bedroom in, all of that. So that was all quite a large scope. So I think where I've learned to cut back for the next one was through this.
Yeah.
I've lots of learning opportunities here. It went essentially, the builder charged us twice. The electrician, unlike what they quoted us, we actually needed to rewire the whole property because it's an old property.
Yeah, that's quite a hefty cost.
Yes, and that wasn't part of our plan. We did add 10, 15, 20% due diligence, however, not 100%.
My question for you with Chrissy in Australia, how does the lending side work with her income? Does she get to, I know there's some stuff around like her incomes get shaded. Talk us through that a bit.
Yeah, so banks will shade overseas income for like a bit of risk. There's an exchange rate risk. There's a risk that they're not in the country, so they might not be so committed to paying off the loans, these sorts of things. But, being in Australia, the shading's not huge, and some banks will actually take it at 100% and not shade it at all. So it really just depends on what bank you go with. It's not a massive amount. Yeah.
And Chrissy, with buying a property like that while living in Australia, so you worked with AJ, how did you find that process?
It was so easy. So it really goes to show the power of power teams, to have your team behind you. And AJ knows exactly what the end goal is. And that's so important, because in the past I did work with other mortgage brokers, obviously, to get the lending. They just don't seem to understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah, it is a bit of a specialist area.
Yeah.
Like the whole buy, renovate, revalue. And, different mortgage brokers, one, have different specialties, but two, have different risk profiles. So for some mortgage brokers, they look at that and they just go, this is too far outside of the risk profile for us.
Yeah, and so I was having a lot of these conversations when we were in Wellington on Friday, where just because you've had a great experience with your broker buying your first home, when you're starting to look at investment properties with a renovation aspect, you've got to make sure they're still the right person to do the job.
Yeah, and it goes the same with the bank as well. Like the bank that gets you into your first home may very well not be the bank that keeps you going on that property journey.
Yeah, actually, I do have to say we went to Kiwi Bank for the first property, obviously, because it was a Kiwi build. Went to them and I went back to her for the second house, and she wasn't able to help.
So, Chrissy, that property in Whangarei is now rented out. Life's going good with it. I'm keen to talk about this Wellington property that you purchased, which Mike and I did see in person just last week. And we're going to talk about that after this break.
If you want to grow your property portfolio and unlock your equity like Chrissy did, get in touch with the team at Lighthouse Mortgages using the link in the show notes below. Now, back to the episode.
Okay, Chrissy, so you've got your place in Scotts Point. You've moved to Australia. You bought this property in Whangarei. The drop shipping hasn't worked out, but we're a property investor now. Talk to us about the next step. You bought a beautiful property in Wellington. What was the gap between Whangarei and going, okay, I'm ready to go again?
Was it beautiful when you bought it?
Apparently it was smelly. Which you don't smell through the pictures. So how big was the gap? It was a few months. Been trolling through Trade Me for quite a bit, and couldn't find the right return in terms of what I was trying to get at. Definitely keen on a dual income, or even 3 if I could. But dual income was the goer. And then why Wellington? I wasn't keen on necessarily the area in Wellington specifically. I just wanted a property that was in the right returns. In terms of how that's worked out, it's been great. Yeah.
Can I ask you about when you're saying like the right returns, just for the listeners, when you're scrolling and you think about the numbers, what kind of numbers are you thinking about?
Anything that's 8% or above.
And I think that's a really important point, right? Is like, you're not looking at something for the area or anything like this is a purely numbers thing.
Absolutely.
So when you're talking about the return, that's the rental yield, is it? Yeah. And do you look at capital gain uplift as well, like how much you might have to spend on it?
Yes. Yeah. So that's something that I am yet to find out, because I haven't done the revalue of either of the properties. I've been in a very fortunate position to have enough equity to not have to go through that process.
Yeah.
However, because the property is a one title on, and it's two incomes essentially, there is really easy uplift just from subdividing that into two separate titles. So that's a lot of value add to be put in there. Same with the house in Whangarei. We've got subdivision potential, obviously with some costs involved there. However, that's now a 4-bedroom property.
Yeah. And what was the entry price like for the Wellington property? What did you buy it for?
Ooh. That house was 750 grand.
Yeah. I think that's the other thing as well, right? When people are looking at what should I buy, quite often we get people in Auckland who are like, I've only been looking at the Auckland market. I'm like, that's the most expensive market in the country.
Yes.
Yeah, there is life outside of the the Bombay Hills.
Yeah, outside the 09.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a Jaffa, so you wouldn't know what's going on
I have no
outside.
idea. But
I have to say that was scary. Buying in areas I've never been myself in is quite challenging to just navigate it, which is where I think having the coach and the right coach is they pay for themselves in gold, essentially, in returns there.
Yeah. We hear about it all the time, people going like, I can't drive past it and mow the lawn, so I'm not going to buy it. And we're just like, it's just numbers on a spreadsheet.
You're also never going to, you'll drive past it once. And then you'll be like, I don't want to go see that anymore.
I haven't seen the house before I bought it ever now, Whangarei or Wellington. It was really purely numbers driven.
So you've bought the place for $750. You renovated it. I know that because we went through it on Friday. Tell us, what was the scope of the renovations?
So learning from the first one, added only some value by putting the extra bedrooms in. So we went from a 3-bedroom for either side to 4 bedrooms now, and painting the walls, essentially changing the carpets, just really cosmetic type touch-ups. The rental market's quite soft at the moment, so I feel like spending money on a new bathroom, new kitchen might just not be the right returns at the moment. So that would be, I think, overspending and not getting the right leverage at the moment. So just cosmetics. And it was about, how much we spent? 80 grand across both units.
And how long did the renos take?
3 weeks. He
that's quick.
is incredible.
Yeah. Who did you work with for that?
Worked with Jason from
Rent Care?
Rent Care, yes.
Yeah. Jason's really good.
Yeah. We use Jason for a lot of our stuff. And I got to say, worked with a lot of builders over my time. Not many have done what they said they would do. Jason overpromises and over-delivers all the time. So Rent Care, definitely, if you're in Wellington, go check them out.
Absolutely.
And do they manage the property for you as well?
Correct. Yes. They've done, the great thing about it is that he knows how to manage the property, and he's also the builder for it. So that means that you're in the right hands for what you want. He understands the assignment as such, and so he will make the right decisions for you as well. So for example, I thought that having a smaller bedroom and a larger living room potentially could be the goer. However, he was like, no, actually in this area, having a bigger bedroom and a smaller living room could actually be a better fit.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. And so the other probably twist with this is you've rented it out to social housing. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So I think there used to be some tax kickbacks for social housing. However, now there are not so many. It's much the same. In terms of the area that we're currently in, the house is within a social housing area anyway. And so having the right tenants for me is important, because this house is privy anyway to lower socioeconomic area. You'd probably get lower socioeconomic tenants, which they're great, but they're sometimes hit and miss. And so having, I guess, an overall head tenant is better. I guess it mitigates the issues and any risks that you might have.
Yeah, because do they guarantee the state of the property for you?
Yes, they do.
Which is huge, right? There's always a risk with any rental property that the tenant, damages the property, and that might not even be deliberately, but sometimes you get kids in there and kids just break stuff, right? And having a head tenant in place, they'll guarantee the state of the property from when they took it over, which is huge.
Yeah.
So, Chrissy, you've got those 3 properties now. Tell us, what are the biggest lessons you've had from 2018, moving to Australia and then renovating these 2 properties with Ilsa? What are the biggest learnings?
Yeah, look, I think from all the way back then, I learned how you can very quickly use up your income, your usable income. And so that was lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 was renovation, how you add value. There's ways to go about it, and there's ways to go about it. So I'm a big visual person. I love living in a beautiful home. And that was my very first thought. Here I am getting my hands dirty, getting in the nitty gritty of a renovation and whangarei. However, had to really dial that back. Initially, I thought we'll do like a European laundry and we'll do this and we'll do that.
This is a really good point though, because so many people go, what would I want in my home?
Yeah.
Yes.
We've seen rental properties with like marble kitchen tops,
Yeah,
right?
it's insane. Someone put a pool in one the other day. Like they were flipping a prop and they put a pool in it. I was like, don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, very quickly I realized how quickly costs add up. But also the numbers just need to stack up and I'm not living in it. And then I had to start thinking about it from a client point of view. What would they want? What is this area? Who would be in here? And so really dialed that back from what I would want to what they would want, and then made the numbers stack. However, the first one, we went full-blown reno, did the full kitchen, did the full bathroom, went overboard there. So the builder charged us double what he had initially quoted. You always add some contingency, but not double. And so that was unforeseen. Wiring was also something that you need to do. You can't see it unless you get into the walls, which you can't before you buy the house.
Yeah.
So that was unforeseen as well. So yeah, that reno budget went from 0 to 100 very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the period of time that renovation took was something like 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Insane. So the property was essentially charging, we were getting costs for that, and we weren't getting any income from it.
Yeah. That holding cost starts to add up after a while.
Yes. So not only did the renovation take longer, it also costed more. So learned all of that and applied that into the second project.
Cool. Okay. And so what's next for you? You're in Australia, you've got these 3 properties. What are the plans going forward?
So next, I feel like the market in New Zealand is great in terms of rental buy and hold, essentially. In Australia, buy and hold is only for capital gains, essentially. The property market at the moment is returning something like 3%, and that's a great yield for them. However, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
So we'll continue investing in New Zealand, and then I think in the future potentially doing some developments in Australia. So again, capital value is of what you can get out of Australia. So I think really looking at and learning more about the market over there to then leverage it and bring it back here and then really get into the cash flow.
Yeah, nice.
Cash flow's king.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay. And last question for you, Chrissy. For those listeners out there who are thinking about, do I get into property? I'm not sure where to start. What tips would you give them?
Save money. Definitely get into property. I think there is no better way than to leverage someone else's money, like the bank, to then get yourself set up for success. I know that a lot of people say there's other ways to make money, and there is, but for me it's a tangible asset. So yeah, save money, make sure you continue growing your income, and that helps with the usable income from a lending perspective. And then definitely when you start buying your rentals, look at cash flow, because very quickly that starts adding up.
Awesome, Chrissy. Well, thank you very much for sharing your story. I just think it's great that you were willing to come on the podcast and kind of talk through your journey so others can learn from you. Enjoy the rest of your time in New Zealand. Don't miss us too much when you return back to Australia. Much love to Lighthouse Financial for sponsoring this episode. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a review. Give us a like. And we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.